All right, let's crack this one open. We are unsealing a pretty critical incident file today, one that details a, well, catastrophic failure with some serious cosmic implications. Welcome to our analysis of Case File 77A, also known as Paradise Lost. So, what we're going to do here is analyze the operational failure in what they called Sector Eden. We're going to break down the key subjects involved, their psychological profiles, and the tactical decisions that really led to the whole breach. Let's open the file. First up, you can't understand a failure without understanding the one who caused it. So this first section of the dossier is all about the subject known simply as the adversary. So who exactly are we dealing with here? The subject's alias is Satan, but you have to notice his former designation, Lucifer. And that's not just a name change, you know? It really signifies a complete shift in identity from a high-ranking celestial entity to the, get this, architect of pandemonium. We're not talking about some low-level operative. This is a strategic-level threat who knows the command structures inside and out. The file is crystal clear on what makes him tick. It all comes down to an unyielding, all-consuming pride. From his point of view, any kind of hierarchy, any suggestion that he has to be subordinate, it's not just a strategic problem, it's a deep personal insult. And that, right there, is the engine that drives every single one of his actions. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the total disconnect between his public message and his internal reality. He goes around preaching liberation and equality, but the psych profile reports a state of hell within, a permanent, inescapable mental torment. He can't escape his own misery, so his primary mission becomes exporting that misery to everyone else. So how does he do it? What's his playbook? Well, his go-to weapon isn't brute force, not at all. It's information warfare, really, the sophisticated subversion of truth itself. He uses this charismatic, populist rhetoric to manipulate people, and field reports confirm he's extremely adaptable. He can become a mist, a serpent, whatever it takes to get past defenses. But the core of his strategy is psychological. He profiles his targets to find and exploit their deepest desires. And this is the part that's just chilling. He's not some puppet master pulling strings in the traditional sense. His method is way more subtle. He doesn't actually force anyone to do anything. Instead, he just provides the justification, the twisted logic for his targets to choose their own self-destruction. It's a brilliant and frankly terrifying strategy. And, you know, these choices, they have consequences. This file tracks a pretty shocking physical and moral decay over time. He starts out as a faded but still majestic archangel. But as the conflict goes on, his physical form gets worse, and it directly correlates with his increasingly desperate moral choices. It all culminates in the Eden operation, where he's literally reduced to the form of a crawling reptile. Okay, so that's the profile on the adversary. Now let's switch gears and look at the other key player in this whole incident, and you'll see how this all comes together. Let's look at the asset profile for the first man. So the asset, designated Adam, was essentially engineered to be the sovereign steward of the entire terrestrial sector. I mean, his initial specs were flawless. A superior intellect, a direct and open line to command, and a state of perfect mental and emotional equilibrium. His main job was critical, to be the living bridge between the spiritual and physical realms. He was the linchpin of the whole operation. His core operating system, if you will, was this faculty known as right reason. And what the file says this means is the ability to figure out the fundamental laws of the universe just by using pure logic and observation. So his power didn't come from some outside source, but from being perfectly aligned with the natural order of things. So you gotta ask, right? If this guy was built with this level of intellectual perfection, this kind of stability, how on earth did the operation fail so spectacularly? What was the asset's critical vulnerability? And here it is, the Achilles heel. The vulnerability wasn't a bug in his logic processor. Nope, it was actually a feature of his design, the relational factor. A profound, deep emotional attachment to his companion Eve. His greatest strength, his capacity for love, also turned out to be his greatest weakness. Which, of course, brings us to the incident itself. Let's analyze the breach and pinpoint the exact moment this whole thing went sideways. It all boiled down to a complete breakdown in the chain of command. The asset's primary protocol, his main directive, was allegiance to the Creator, guided by duty and reason. But in that one critical moment, his allegiance to the creature, to Eve, which was driven by passion and affection, just completely overruled that primary directive. And let's be absolutely clear about this. The report stresses it. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some mistake made out of confusion. The report says Adam, consciously and with full knowledge of the consequences, chose to prioritize his bond with his companion over his duty to his creator. He knew the protocol, he chose to break it. So, the breach happens. The rules are broken. What's the fallout? This last part of the file tracks what happens next to both of them, and honestly, the outcomes couldn't be more different. Just look at this side by side. It's incredible. You've got two completely opposite character arcs playing out. The adversary is on a path of diminishing, from archangel down to a reptile, from these grand cosmic ambitions to just petty spite. But the first man's path is one of becoming, from a kind of static perfection to a dynamic resilience, from simple innocence to becoming a student of grace. When you look at the adversary, the takeaway is just stark. His story is a textbook case of self-destruction. The constant pursuit of his own pride, his rebellion, it ultimately just shrinks and diminishes him until there's really nothing left but a hollow shell. But Adam, on the other hand, he evolves. He doesn't just go back to square one, he transitions into something totally new. He gains what the report calls the sum of wisdom, this unique combination of knowing failure firsthand, but also holding on to hope. He becomes the living archetype for human resilience. The Dossier's conclusion really puts it best. Despite the catastrophic failure, Adam doesn't end as a defeated subject. He ends his story as a humbled student, having learned a lesson that was basically impossible for him to grasp in his original perfect state. And that's what this whole case file leaves us wrestling with, isn't it? This really big question. Is some kind of failure, a fall from grace, actually a necessary ingredient for achieving true, deep wisdom? That's the thought I'll leave you with. Case file closed.